Hello everybody, this is Rusty Dog. In this video I'd like to talk about exploits, nerfs, the grind and the debate that surrounds all of that. Now this is a video I wanted to do for a little while, but I kind of have delayed it because I wasn't sure whether I should put it out there, but I've decided that I should air my own opinion. And I don't expect my opinion to match with everybody else's, and that's absolutely fine. But nevertheless, it is my opinion, and it is one that I'm going to express. I'm sure some of you already know my opinions on some of these subjects, but we're going to go into detail and have a look at them. And while I could turn this into a rant, I'm not going to. I'm going to remain hopefully calm and hopefully logical, reasonable, I don't know. You know what I mean. Level-headed, I hope. So, let's get started. What is an exploit? In gaming terms, quite simply, an exploit is taking advantage of unintended gameplay for your own gain. By that definition, would the recent skimmer missions be classed as an exploit? Well, hell yes. And for those that didn't think so, or weren't sure, you had it confirmed to you when Frontier took the missions offline. They wouldn't have done that if it were intended gameplay. That action alone defined the skimmer missions as an exploit. If that was not enough, which it should be, there was exploitative gameplay to be had whilst carrying out the skimmer missions. For one, you were able to complete missions that were meant to be carried out at a different location. This should not happen even if the missions are for the same faction. If a mission goal is to kill skimmers at location A, you should not be able to kill skimmers at location B and still complete the mission for location A. Otherwise, why even bother with a location? Just have a mission say, kill skimmers at A or B. As it is though, the missions are very specific. Secondly, these missions were done en masse by stacking up to 20 of them. When 20 missions were not available on one board sweep, then the player would mode swap, which is obviously switching from open or private group to solo, or vice versa. Some claim that Frontier don't class this as an exploit, but in my opinion, I think they do, but they just let it slide because it is a nuance of the game that they cannot fully do anything about at the moment. Some, like myself, would claim mode swapping is just a way to save time, and that would be true. But if Frontier wanted a dynamically refreshing mission board, they would implement it instead of making the tickover period every 10 minutes. By mode swapping, you are circumventing, to an extent, that tickover period. Therefore, I would say that was an exploit, albeit a soft one. Because let's face it, you would fill up your 20 missions given more time anyway. Some people may not be willing to wait for the tickover though, and as a result, less people may be inclined to take the missions. The grind. One of the reasons that people engage in exploits or shortcuts is because of the grind. The grind is the rate of progression within the game. Lots of games have a grind. Many believe the grind in Elite Dangerous is too slow. That being the amount they earn in any given hour does not meet their own expectations. The rate of the grind, however, depends very much on your rank, reputation, and the activities you are taking part in. Some are more lucrative than others. Also, everybody's expectations on what a decent hourly earning rate should be is going to be different. It would be, I suspect, a very challenging job for Frontier to balance it to keep the majority happy. But this is something I fear they must try and do. Elite Dangerous is a game with no end. There is no end game, and therefore there is no such thing as end game ships. But this is a term I've heard bandied around quite regularly. But it's also a game that by its very nature is grindy. It is a massive time sink. The original Elite in 1984 was a grind. It's, I would think, fairly common knowledge that Elite is a grindy game that requires a lot of your time. I personally have over 2,280 hours in the game as of this moment. Some players do treat Elite Dangerous as some kind of race or competition, which in my view is going to deprive you of enjoying the journey through the game if you play every shortcut and exploit that surfaces its head. Personally, the journey up from Sidewinder, Eagle, Cobra Mark III, Asp Explorer, Vulture, Python, Anaconda, and eventually to Corvette was an enjoyable one for me. And I am so glad that I did not essentially skip any of it. My earlier days, where I was actually scared for my life, so to speak, in a smaller ship, were some of the most exhilarating moments I've ever had in the game. I can honestly say that the progress up from that initial Sidewinder up to the big ship holds some of the best memories I've got in the game. And currently now feeling invincible in a tricked out Corvette, it just doesn't have that same feeling. So I'm not sure why people are wanting to rush to get there. So is the grind too slow in Elite Dangerous? Or is it just some players who just can't shake the instant gratification mentality or that entitlement where they feel the need that they should have the big ships and the big credits by putting in the minimum of effort? Is it just slow to those who prefer to focus on the acquisition of credits and big ships because they feel it's the only way they can enjoy the game? Is it just slow to those who don't get Elite Dangerous and the type of game that it is? That it doesn't hold your hand or praise you with achievements every time you do something for the first time? That they don't realize that the game is one designed to be played over a long period of time, simulating the advancement in the life or career of a space pilot? Well, I'm going to lay most of the blame on the players for all of the above reasons, and the rest of it square at Frontier's doorstep, because they are not innocent when it comes to all the complaints about the grind. Frontier have never made mention of what they consider to be a decent hourly earning rate, but some things are clear from the start and don't need a mention, but I'm going to anyway. And that is that the rate of earning I think should increase with rank and reputation, which we know it does, but I'm talking about scaling it a little bit better than it is right now. And perhaps even take the current wealth of the player into consideration, up to a point where that consideration should be capped, say perhaps 1 billion credits. It has to be remembered that for some, the grinding rate is perfectly acceptable as it is. It took me a year before I was able to secure an Anaconda and start to work on outfitting it. Now, people want it and get it within weeks. In fact, with the latest shenanigans that's going on, it is possible for a newbie to acquire an Anaconda in perhaps 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah, you heard it. But this I want, and I want it now mentality just doesn't fit inside the Elite Dangerous universe. and those that have it will suffer the most during its gameplay. I believe that if you focus on a faraway goal, the grind is going to be at the forefront, and you will feel it the most. It's like watching a clock. The grind will seem less to those that choose to actually play the game in front of them, rather than play for the goal. Nerfing. Let's understand something. Nerfing is not necessarily a bad thing, but by some it is seen as a bad thing constantly, because they believe that something they have or want is being taken away. Now, a nerf can come in many different forms. It can be a feature or something in the game that just gets removed or completely cut down. It can be a tweak, something that gets tweaked in the game, say like a weapon's overpoweredness, if that's even a word. But let's take an example of the weapons, okay? So let's say we have a plasma accelerator, and we have an experimental weapon on there, and players are going out using these weapons, and they're absolutely melting down other ships, and it's deemed a little bit overpowered. Frontier may look at that and say, okay, look, we've looked at this weapon, we think we brought it out initially in the first place a little bit overpowered, so we're reducing its effectiveness by 20%. That is a nerf. But it's a nerf on what was admittedly originally a bad number in the first place. So that could be seen as a corrective nerf, which is not a bad thing because you're correcting it down. You're kind of balancing things out. The same thing with heat reduction. Now, how are you going to class this one? So if you have a weapon, let's say again the plasma accelerators or one of the Guardian weapons like the Gauss cannons that produce a lot of heat when they're fired, and Frontier say, okay, in the next patch we're going to reduce the amount of heat that these generate by 15%. Now that's a good thing, right? Because it's going to keep your ship cooler. So is that a nerf? Or is it a buff? Because they've taken it away, but they've taken away something that's to our disadvantage. So now it's an advantage because it doesn't have as much heat. Frontier do nerf a lot of things in the game, and some of them stem from exploitative gameplay, and some stem from the need to tweak or adjust settings or situations within the game. Let's take a look at the skimmer missions that were recently nerfed. They had to be nerfed. There is no question. They were hemorrhaging credits, and I think most of us who've been playing the game for a while already know that Frontier are not really into players making a lot of money in a short amount of time. So the skimmer missions were earning people hundreds of millions in an hour. There's nowhere else in the game that you can really earn that kind of money with legitimate gameplay. So it was something that was bleeding, and the bleeding had to stop. The quickest solution, albeit a temporary one, was to remove it from the game. Because any other solution, such as tweaking rewards or whatever, however Frontier may have wanted to deal with that, may have taken a little bit longer to do. And they really didn't have any time to waste. They had to stop it there and then. And so, quite rightly, the skimmer missions were removed. Some saw this as an extreme measure. But if you think about it from programming terms, this wasn't something that they could just put a band-aid on in 2 minutes. It had to be dealt with. So what are some of the reasons that people use to justify shortcutting or exploiting their game? Well, the first one I would say is the grind is too slow. Well, that's subjective, isn't it? It depends what you're doing. It depends if you have an aim in mind. And as I stated earlier, if you do have an aim in mind, say from the very beginning of the game, you look and you know you're drooling over an anaconda, and you put that as your goal, but you focus on it. You focus on grinding for credits in order to get it. Then that grind is going to be annoying and frustrating. So I think the key thing is still want the anaconda, but don't focus on it. Because if you focus on it, you're going to be watching your credits go up like watching a clock, and it's just going to seem so slow. And then the next thing is you're going to say, oh, this is too slow, the grind is too much. But if you focus on playing the game presented in front of you and just take part in everything that's there, then the grind won't be as bad. It just won't, because you'll be engrossed in other stuff. And there's a lot more to do in Elite Dangerous now than there ever was when I was working my way up. So it's not like you have a lack of content. And earning potential is better than it was back then as well, in my day, back in my day. I do think there is a problem with the way some people approach the game. Maybe it's due to a lack of understanding of how Elite Dangerous is designed. There's a 10-year plan behind it, or at least there was when it started out. So it was quite clear that Elite Dangerous isn't a game that's meant to be finished, after 20, 50 hours, after a week, after a month. No, this is a game where you were investing probably years of your time. And the majority of games don't do that. There are games out there that will take a lot of your time, but Elite Dangerous, I think, even takes it to another whole level. Because I've been playing Elite Dangerous for 4 years now, or at least since the alpha, and I'm still coming to it. I'm still playing it. It doesn't have a finish. It doesn't have an end. So again, I refer back to these phrases of end game and end game ships. That's not a concept in Elite Dangerous. There is no end game. So you cannot by default have end game ships. You can have the top ships in the game, the most expensive ships, but they're not end game. Now you don't have to agree with the grind or the rate of the grind, but you can still accept it and understand that in Elite Dangerous, things are meant to be worked for. You're meant to be working for a goal. And that way, when you get it, you'll have more of a sense of accomplishment, which I think is a better way to play. For example, if I started with a Sidewinder with 1,000 credits, and suddenly there's an exploit with these skimmer missions, for example. So I whiz over there, my little Sidewinder. I've got very little experience in the game, but the skimmer missions are not the most difficult thing. And I get myself allied after doing a couple of runs, because, these mission rewards with Rep 5+ is now allowing reputation increase at a staggeringly fast rate. Something which I think needs to be nerfed. But let's say, you just bang 100 million, 150 million, let's say. And then after a few hours, maybe a day's play, you've got your anaconda. Well done. You've made it. Now go and have fun out there. But you won't, because now you need to outfit it. Now you need to learn how to fly. Do you have any flying experience, by the way? Oh, yeah, you've done a couple of hours in a Sidewinder, haven't you? No problem. You should be able to handle yourself like a skilled pilot. And then you've got another player who started with the same thing, the Sidewinder, 1,000 credits, but he's worked his way up. He bought an Eagle. Now he's going to have his first taste of combat. And he's going to feel pretty vulnerable out there. But that's where the fun is. There's the exhilaration of wondering, am I going to come back in one piece? And then if you do, you're going to earn all these credits, and you're going to get yourself maybe a bigger ship. Cobra Mark III. Wow. One of the most iconic ships in the game. You get that, you can do more with it. You can carry more cargo. You can fit more weapons. You've got a little bit more hull. You've got a bit more shield power. You can survive a bit longer. Good. Now I can get a bit more practice in trading. Possibly not exploring yet, although you can. Combat. We know whatever you want to do. Taking missions off the board. Earning. But earning that money and just let it happen. Just let the game happen. Enjoy what's in front of you. Let it happen. Don't, in my opinion, I'm not telling you what to do. Let's get this straight. I'm not telling people how to play the game. I'm suggesting how I think you should play the game based on my own opinion and my own experiences. Because if I'd fast-tracked the game, I would be looking back now probably and thinking, yeah, I kind of regret that. I wish I'd, progressed up the proper way, or the way it was designed. So here's the guy, he's got his Cobra. Now he's thinking, right, okay, I've done trading, I've done combat, now I want to do a bit of exploration. What's the next ship to do that? Ooh, Asp Explorer. Okay. Boom. In an Asp Explorer, engineer it, because you can now, you couldn't in my day. Take it out in the black, go and scan some planets, go and land on planets if you have Horizons, which hopefully you should have. I don't even think Frontier should be selling the base game anymore. It should be Horizons and period, but that's another subject. Come back eventually, sell your exploration data, Now you're earning your rank in the Explorer column. You've done a little bit in the Trader column, you've done a little bit in the Combat column. Now you're working your way up. Now you want to venture onto a bigger ship because you've just traded in a load of credits. Okay, what are we going to have next after the Asp? Vulture? Federal dropship? Well, despite whatever you choose, the progression goes on. And I'm presuming most people on that progressive path eventually will pick on one of the most adaptive ships in the entire game, the Python. You get your Python, it's your first kind of really big ship. It's a medium ship, but compared to the ones you had, and now you're feeling a bit more secure in your ship, and you feel accomplishment because you've worked to get that Python. It's there. Yes, you want the Conda, but you're not focusing on it. You know it's going to come. You know at some point you're going to earn enough credits to buy it and outfit it. But rather than focus on it, you play the game. You carry on doing what you're doing. Go and interact with some mega ships. New in 3.0. Go and do a bit more trading. Do the missions. Yes, some of them are grindy. But you've got passenger missions now. Some pay out better than others. If you find a place, where maybe the system state is in such a way where it's paying out quite handsomely, go for it. Do it. But any task that you engage in on a repetitive basis is going to seem grindy. And this takes me to my next point. The second reason why people justify shortcutting and exploiting. it's fun. No, it isn't. There are no exploits in the game that are fun. Why? Because they are all repetitive. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. It's the same task over and over and over again. It is its own mini grind. Exploits are mini grinds within themselves, but people have fun. How can that be? If grinding the game isn't fun, why are exploits fun? Because it's grindy gameplay. Skimmer missions, let's say. Go here, kill the skimmers, come back. Wait while you stack 20 missions. Go there, kill the skimmers, come back. There, back, there, back. Grind, grind, grind. But we are having fun. Why? Because you're earning the big money? That's the only difference. If the skimmer missions didn't earn big money, would you still do them? Would you still find them fun? Some people do. Some people do find the skimmer missions fun legitimately. You know, it's what they like to do. That's fine. Let's put those people aside. I'm talking about people who wouldn't otherwise do the skimmer missions unless they were paying out big bucks. So therefore, the fun is in the rewards. And this is where it's going wrong. Because the fun shouldn't be in the reward. It should be in the gameplay. If you're not getting fun from the gameplay, perhaps consider a different game. I know that sounds harsh, but if you're only having fun getting paid big money and not doing the task to get the big money, I would suggest that perhaps this is not the kind of game for you. Because why would you play a game you're not enjoying? Why? Why would you bother? And then you get the big money, you buy the big ships. Are you suddenly going to enjoy the game? And if so, how does that work? Why? Because you can kill more things, you can jump further, you can put more in your cargo hold. You know, because what you're doing in the game is exactly the same as what you were doing when you maybe had your Asp Explorer. Only you can do things a little bit faster. You can kill faster. You can trade more. You can perhaps jump further distances. You know, but essentially you're doing the same actions. And if you didn't enjoy those actions before, how are you enjoying them now? I think it's a fallacy to assume that the only fun in the game is to be had at the top end. It isn't. It just really isn't. The fun is the journey up. Might not seem it at the time because you have to grind and you actually have to work for what you earn. And it's the same in life, you know. You can't just start a new job and, you know, buy a Ferrari in the next couple of weeks, you know, unless you're a football player, I suppose. But you know what I mean. You can have that goal. I want a Ferrari. I want a Ferrari. I want a Ferrari, and you can save and save and save. Yeah, it's going to seem a bit grindy, but you'll get there. And when you get it, you're going to feel so much more accomplished, and you're going to feel a sense of satisfaction. When I got my Anaconda, I was over the moon with it. In fact, let's not even talk about the Conda, the Python. Once I was able to afford my Python, I just fell in love with it, and I thought, wow, it's taken me so long to get this. I didn't have it particularly in mind, neither did I have the Anaconda. I would have liked it at some point, but I didn't focus on it. And I eventually got both ships. I was able to have both at the same time. But, you know, I feel like I earned them. So yeah, let's go on to the next reason for justifying shortcutting and exploiting the game. I can't enjoy the game until I have the big ships and get rich. Well, in my opinion, you're wrong. You can enjoy the game without having the big ships and the big wealth. However, if you can't, then I'm pretty sure when you get the big ships and get rich, you're not going to enjoy it either. If you fast track your way up to an anaconda, and let's say you've made enough money through exploits and shortcutting to A-rate it, okay, and you've got your weapons on there. If you've rushed through the game in a very, very short space of time to get that ship, you've got no combat experience, you know. So even in a PvE environment, you're like, in any given battle, you're probably going to get blown out of the sky unless it's only pea shooter ships that's taking you on. But the moment you meet any fair resistance, I don't rate your chances. But if you've learned your craft, let's say your skill of combat, by going through the other ships, the Cobra at least to start with, or maybe even down to the Eagle, maybe going up to Vulture, which is a great ship to practice in. It's the opposite of the Anaconda, however, when it comes to nimbleness, agility and movement, because the Anaconda, you have to fly it differently. You really have to fly it in a different way. And if you're going to keep getting killed in that Anaconda, your rebuys ain't going to be cheap, and you're probably not going to enjoy yourself because you keep getting killed. I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm just saying what I think is going to be the way, or what it would be the way for me if I suddenly turned up in an Anaconda after a couple of weeks in the game, and I kept getting killed because I didn't know how to fly the thing properly. I'm going to start getting frustrated. So, let's move on. Number 4. And this one winds me right up. Wanting to catch up to everyone else in the game. I don't even know where to start with this one. Who's everyone else? Do you really think everyone else is ahead of you? Because it's not the case. There are people who are just joining, who are behind you or level with you, or just a couple of steps either side of you. And this idea that you have to catch up to them. No matter at what point you join the game, there's always going to be someone ahead of you. There's always going to be someone at the top of the game, you know, that's already got all the stuff. Because either they've earned it, you know, by playing the game, or they've shortcutted their way through, or a bit of both. Now, I just can't understand this need, you know. Oh, so and so's got an Anaconda or a Corvette, and so I want one. You know, okay, fine, but you know, go through the game like maybe they did, and earn your stripes, and earn the stuff you have based on your accomplishments that have gone before. I guarantee you'll feel so much better. But this notion where you feel you have to catch up, if you start the game with that notion, I think you're already lost. I think you've lost the concept of the game. You don't need to catch up. Elite Dangerous isn't a race or a competition. You don't have a time limit. Never mind that others are flying big ships. They've probably been in the game for a lot longer than you have. Play your own game. Forge your path, as they say, or blaze your trail. But play the game in front of you and try and enjoy it. If you can't, maybe Elite Dangerous isn't for you. Maybe you're used to games where you get stuff at a faster rate. You know, maybe you're used to games where you can complete it in 50 hours or 20 hours or whatever it is. But Elite doesn't work that way. You know, it expects time from you. Let's take a look at the next one. This one for me is the most nauseating and most repeated phrase when it comes to exploiting. Number 5. Why do you care what other people do in their game? Or, similarly, what people do in their game doesn't affect you, so why are you bothered? Well, this isn't strictly true either. It does affect other people's games. On different levels. It can depend. It can affect the background sim to an extent, depending on what the player's doing. Also, you can have a situation where somebody has fast-tracked their way to an anaconda, kitted it out. They may not be the most skilled pilot in the galaxy, but then you have another guy who's been in the game just as long, has played the game and not the gold rushes, and he's sitting there in a Asp Explorer or something, and the guy who fast-tracked his way through comes and blows this guy out the sky. Now, that is affecting your gameplay, because he wouldn't be sitting in that anaconda had he not fast-tracked his way through the game, so there's an argument to be had there. But here's another reason why some of us care. It's not about whether they can directly affect my game. It's more to do with the fact that it totally undermines all the work from other players who've played it legitimately, you know? And you might think, well, why should that bother you? But it does. It just does. If I put 4 years of work, or playtime, let's call it that, into achieving what I have today, and yet somebody's able to equal what I have, maybe not all 16 ships, but let's say 2 billion credits and a Corvette. And due to exploits, shortcuts, fast tracking, whatever you want to call it, and now with the ability to rep up and rank up a lot faster, is able to get the Corvette and only be 2 weeks in the game. I've already seen a forum post where someone's been in the game for literally 2 weeks. Doesn't really have a clue about engineering or many aspects of the game, as you would expect from someone who's 2 weeks in the game. And they're asking, which ship should I get, an Anaconda or a Corvette? After 2 weeks. Really? If that post doesn't signify that the game is broken in some way, then I don't know what does. So, let's say you buy the Corvette. You've clearly got enough money to buy it, and maybe even to outfit it, if you've sat and done skimmer missions or any other exploit in the past. Do you know how much hours I put in to get to that Corvette? You know, how much grind I went through? And you're just going to come into the game and in 2 weeks sit in a Corvette? Sure, you're not going to be as experienced and as skilled, but why should you have that? Why? It doesn't affect me, no. But it doesn't affect me directly. But you're undermining all the effort from other players who've achieved it legitimately. And it's kind of a huge insult to those players to say, you know, oh, all the time you put in, all that real life time you've wasted it because I fast-tracked my way through and I've got this just like you did, but I did it in a couple of weeks. Do you not see a problem with that? Do you not see that that's an issue? Why players would be annoyed or irked about something like that? I don't know. I think it's a very legitimate reason. And I don't think other players who've played the game should have their efforts undermined by people who have fast-tracked their way through the game. It's their game. They paid for it. Yeah, I know the argument. It's their game that they paid for. And they're essentially going to spoil their own game. They might not think so, because they're going to be sitting in a Corvette after a couple of weeks of grinding rank and grinding credits. But, you know, the mere fact you can do that in 2 weeks shows that there's something wrong with the game somewhere. And it doesn't really help when there are videos on YouTube showing people, hey, here's how to earn loads of credits. Hey, here's how to rank your way up through the Empire in no time. Hey, here's how to rank your way up through the Federation in no time. You probably think you're doing people a service by putting these videos out. And for sure you get a lot of people saying, thank you, you're my hero, here, have a donation, thank you, if it wasn't for you I wouldn't have my anaconda and I wouldn't have my cutter. But I think what you're doing, certainly on some unwitting players, is cheating them out of their game. You know, you're showing them how to shortcut a game as if it's the right way to play it. And then they maybe think it is, because you put the video out there, and then they go and play this, they rank up, they get loads of credits, and they think, great, now I'm going to have loads of fun, now I've got the big ships. And, you know, some of them are going to get bored, some of them are going to realize it's not all the fun up there at the top end, and maybe decide, let's sell the cutter that I just bought and I'll just get myself a vulture or something, and I will learn how to play this game. And I can't help but thinking there are people out there who have looked at these videos that show people how to fast track the game and are being shortchanged. They're having their game that they paid for shortchanged. And why would you buy a game like Elite and want to rush through it? I don't understand that. What's the rush? Why would you want to? You know, if the game takes a year for you to get your anaconda, so what? So what? Why is that so bad? Why is there a need that you feel you have to have it now? I think if you have that attitude towards the game, then you're looking at it in the wrong way. Again, remember, everything I'm saying here is entirely my own opinion, and you know, you're going to have your own views based on whether you think exploiting the game is okay. Even if you think it's not okay, you agree with me that it's not okay, or not the right way to play the game, let's put it that way. You may have differing opinions in other aspects, and that's fine. And I'm open to debate, and I invite comments on the video. Please leave your comment. Please try and be constructive. You know, don't start flinging. Don't try and be passive aggressive and say, you know, oh, but why do you care this, and why you try and construct something, you know, that I can come back to you and say, yes, that's a thought provoking. That's something I want to talk about. Let's debate that point. Let's talk about this. I'm going to give you another reason which wasn't on my list, but I've just remembered it now, and I'm sorry to say this, but some people are not going to like this one. So number 6 then. And it's those people who claim they don't have many hours in the week to play Elite Dangerous because family commitments, work, whatever it is. That, to me, is a completely BS excuse as to why it's okay for you to exploit. Because you feel, okay, I can only put 2 or 3 hours a day in, or maybe a couple of hours, you know, and therefore I should be entitled almost to use methods where I get big money to make up for the fact that I can't put the time in. I'm assuming some of you can already see an issue with this. My answer to that is, how can you, who only has a limited time to play the game, expect to progress at the same level as somebody who puts in, say, 4 times the amount as you do? It's just the maths doesn't work on that one. And it's not like Frontier are going to say, okay, for those people who don't get many hours to play the game, we're going to put in these missions which can get you loads of money, and that way you can, in quotes, keep up. Well, the people who put in loads of hours are going to have access to those missions as well. So it's going to rebalance itself out. There's nothing that's going to go into this game that's going to help you. You know, as we said at the start, Elite is a time sink. It requires your time. If you can't give it that time, if you can't put in those hours, you don't get to progress as much as the people who can. It's simple. It's harsh, it's blunt, but it is how it is, and it's logical. And okay, let's say you have family commitments, you have work commitments, and you maybe only get to put in a few hours a week. It's absolutely fine. No problem. Just play at your own pace. Again, it's not a race. You don't have to compete with anybody. Okay, so you've got your mates who are in big tricked out ships going fighting Thargoids, and you're stuck there in an Asp Explorer and you feel a bit left out. Well, yeah, I understand, you know, but I don't know what to tell you. If you think shortcutting your way to get a big ship to kit it out to kill the Goids, the Goids are going to mash you. You know, you need experience, you need time in the game. You have to put the time in to reap the rewards. It's like anything. So please don't make that an excuse. You know, if you feel you can only put a very limited amount of time in the game, again, maybe Elite isn't something you need to be investing time in, because for you to get, you know, anywhere significant, let's say, where you can be up there, you know, with the big ships, you do need to put that time in. But don't think that you can't have fun at the lower end, because you really can. You know, when you're starting out in the game and you've got your little ships, you know, and you've got limited experience, there's loads of fun in there, believe me. I know the missions are repetitive, that there needs to be more diversity, there needs to be better scaling of mission rewards. Yes, some of this is laid at Frontier's doorstep. Some of the way that the missions are generated, given certain system situations that create these gold rushes, they need to be addressed. That mechanic needs to be looked into. This is not all the players' faults. Players do have a legitimate complaint when it comes to the grind, but it's taken, I believe it's overhyped. The grind isn't as bad as it was back in the day. There are more profitable missions to be had now. You've got wing missions. We're going to talk about those in a moment. And there's more to do in the game as well. Let it come to you. I don't know how many times I can say that, but I'm trying to tell people that, you know, that there is a way to play this where you really can enjoy it, and don't let anybody tell you that the fun's only at the top end, because it's not true. If you don't find fun at the bottom end or as you're working your way up, then clearly you just don't enjoy the game, period. But the fun is to be had. I've been through it. Trust me, it's there. You know, I can take my Corvette now into a Hazres, and I can just sit there killing off NPC ships left, right and centre. And to be quite honest, it's so easy, it's boring. However, if I jump into my Vulture, I'm more vulnerable. And if I take on the big ships, I've got more of a challenge on my hands. I might not make it, I might get blown up, but it's a damn sight more fun. Just saying. So, wing missions, the latest exploit, and it is an exploit. Some people will have you believe that because a certain game mechanic or a certain way of playing is allowed in the game, that is to say that it is in the game, that it is therefore intended and therefore not an exploit. I think that's a fallacy as well. Let's take a look at Quince. Quince had local passenger missions. I'm not going to talk about the planetary scan missions because that's just a nightmare. But anyway, the local passenger missions that they had in that system, there was 2 beacons that you had to take passengers to. But again, if you took all the passengers to this one beacon, all the missions completed. So the passengers who wanted to go to the other beacon and weren't taken there, seemingly were very happy. Now, that can't have been intended, but yet it was maybe it was a bug, or it was just, faulty game mechanics. But just because it allowed you to complete the missions from, that were supposed to go to a different place, doesn't mean it's intended gameplay. Because Frontier could look at that and go, oh, that's not supposed to happen. And, either fix it or remove it from the game. In this case, they removed it from the game. So clearly it was not intended. So please don't assume that just because the game allows something, that it's A, intended, and B, not an exploit. And wing missions are the new trend. So we've got some people now playing the hero, thinking they're playing the hero. And they're taking on wing missions by themselves, stacking a few up, I would imagine, and completing them. So they go out and they've got, let's say, 4 or 5 cargo missions, and they do them all. They put the work in, they put the time in, and they put the effort in. And I'm talking, when these players I'm talking about are probably long-time veteran players, loads of money, and in they go. And when all the missions are complete, but not handed in, just completed, they've got maybe 150 million worth of rewards waiting to be collected. And then they go onto the forum or somewhere else, whatever, and say, hey, you newbie guys in Sidewinders, you want 100 million, or you want to have an anaconda? Come into my wing and I'll complete the missions and you can have all the money. Because as you know, each member of the wing gets the same amount of money. And even if you join at the very end and you haven't contributed at all, you get all the money. That's a flaw in the game mechanics as far as I'm concerned. Sandro Samarco said that, we should self-police, but let's face it. There are certain sections of the community who cannot be trusted to self-police such things. So these newbies, oh yeah, I want an anaconda, I want 100 million. They go in, they join the wing, they get paid 100 million or 150 million. Now you can go and buy your anaconda. You've only been in the game for 2 minutes and you're sitting in an anaconda now. Can you fly it? Can you outfit it? Do you know what an engineer is? These people who do this, I'm sure they think they're doing a good thing, a good deed. And I'm sure some of the people on the receiving end are being forever thankful for being given this inheritance. But I think some of those newbies, let's say, not in all cases, some people know what they're doing when they're picking up this money or getting these ships. I think you are cheating some people out of their journey, and you are allowing them to shortcut a game, and I think in some cases it's bound to happen that you're effectively spoiling their game. You're going to spoil their progress. Now, you could argue, well, it's their decision, it's up to them. But maybe they don't realize the ramifications of taking 100 million or an anaconda straight from the start, and the fact that, well, they're going to get wiped out in any given battle scenario, most likely. And, and the fact that their journey up has kind of been, I guess it's not taken away from them fully, but they've been given a ship to enable them to progress faster, and maybe some of them will just keep the condor. Maybe they won't buy an anaconda with the money. Maybe they'll go and buy a fleet of small ships. But again, you're kind of fast tracking your way through. And I'm not saying everybody should grind away for years on the game. I'm not saying that. But put the time in, put the effort in, and earn things, accomplish things. You know, rather than have it handed to you on a plate. Why, again, why do you want to rush the game through? Why do you want to rush to get the top stuff? You know, let it come. I don't know. I don't understand. Okay, so I guess it's time to wrap things up. Um, please don't take anything I've said out of context. Um, I'm not innocent when it comes to um, exploitative gameplay. I've taken part in some of that. Some of that was on my, and I'm going to explain what it was. Well, at least the ones I can remember, because I haven't done a lot of it. I have done it, but I haven't done a lot of it. If I could take time back and not do it, would I? I don't know, really. To be honest, I don't know. But I certainly didn't fast track my way through the game like you can these days with these gold rushes. It certainly wasn't like that. I'm talking way back in the day when mission stacking didn't have a cap. And there was one time I would stack 81 missions, I think was the most I ever stacked. And this was skimmer missions. And this was, I can't remember if I was grinding up for the Baron rank, or what it was. I don't think credits were the main goal there. But to put it into perspective, to stack 80 missions took a long time. You'd probably be sitting there for about 40 minutes, 50 minutes just to stack the missions, maybe even longer. Because the more missions you got, once you got to 60 plus, the mission started to really dry up, and you had to wait for a long time. Even with mode switching, you had to wait. There was maybe a couple of missions, you know, and you really would have to wait a long time. And then you'd go out and you'd kill some skimmers, but then you'd have to instance swap, which again, as I said, I think is a soft exploit. But Frontier do turn a blind eye, and I think they turn a blind eye because it's not something they can readily fix. So they have to let it go. And yeah, we would instance swap until all the missions were complete. And then you come back, 80 missions, and you'd cash them all in, and you'd rep up, or you'd rank up in the Empire. And your cash reward for 80 missions would be something like 40 million, maybe less. It's not like now where you're earning, you know, 200-300 million an hour with skimmer missions, you know, and the skimmer missions today are really simplified, because now you just have to back off a little way and the skimmers will regenerate, you know. So I did a little bit of that. So at the time I wanted the Clipper, and you needed the Baron rank, and I was already close to the Baron rank. It's not like I was miles away, you know. I was probably at the rank below that and possibly halfway up. I don't know what the rank below that Baron is, I can't remember. Squire or Knight or whatever the hell it is. And I would just do the skimmer missions until I hit the Baron, and that was it. Now I can buy the Clipper. I bought the Clipper, and I think I had it for a couple of days and decided this isn't for me. And it was all for nothing. What was another time? Yeah, okay, so these latest skimmer missions that I've talked about, and I don't condone this. You're not going to see me. I have done this in the past, where I've put out missions on, I put out videos on how to earn money, you know, quickly. But you won't see a video from me showing you how to earn loads of money via exploitative gameplay. Via legit gameplay, I have no problem with that. If you can earn loads of money with legit game mechanics because you found a nice little, you know, place to go where they pay you well and it's all good, go for it. Absolutely go for it. Completely. But if you look at my situation as it was before the skimmer missions, I did take part in these skimmer missions. Some of it was for just, I have to say it was for my own references, so I could see what the fuss was about. how much the gains were, you know. But at that time, I was already sitting on 15 ships in my fleet. I had 2 Anacondas, 2 Corvettes, and a cutter, and 2 billion in the bank. Any money I make on top of that isn't really going to affect too many things, you know. So I spent a few hours doing the skimmers, and I earned, I think it was about $1.5 billion. So then I went up to $3.5 billion. And yeah, okay, it was exploitative. And it's not something that I'm proud of, but I knew what I was doing when I was doing it. I don't feel like, in my case, that I've shortcutted my game, because I already have everything. Before I started doing them, the skimmers, I didn't need the money. You know, I didn't need any extra money. I had 2 billion. I didn't want for anything. I don't want for any other ships. I don't want another cutter. I don't want another Corvette, and I don't at this time want another Anaconda either. You know, I can go out and buy a Chieftain, but hell, I could do that anyway. There was something I was after, and that was prismatic shields. I'd done the power play to earn the prismatic shields, but buying them is very expensive, and I wanted to buy a class 8, a 7, 6, 5, 4 and a 3. That was going to come to around 350 million. I could have, from my 2 billion, as you can tell, I could have easily done it. No problem. I could have bought it. I could have even bought another cutter and A-rated it. You know, I had the money, I had the funds, but I wanted for nothing. So this extra billion and 1.5 billion essentially was me going a bit too far, because I said at the time, I only want to make enough money to buy the prismatic shields and stay above the 2 billion line. That's all I wanted to do, but I just kept going. Now, okay, so here I'm sitting now on 3.5 billion. Actually, I sat on 4 billion, but I'll explain that in a minute. So 3.5 billion. So I bought the prismatics. I think I even did it on stream. But the rest of that money that I got from doing the skimmer missions is still there in my balance. I've got nothing to spend it on, you know? So I literally am not affecting anybody else's game. And if I bought another cutter and A-rated it and took it out, well, I had the funds to do that anyway. So I'm not saying that once you get to be a multi-billionaire, it's okay to do the exploits, because by that point it doesn't make any difference anyway. It's true that it doesn't make that much of a difference once you've already got loads of money and loads of ships. It doesn't make the same difference as, say, somebody who's newer, who's only got a few million in the bank, or maybe even less, and does the same missions and earns $1 billion. That's gonna fast track them through the game. I can't be fast tracked through the game anymore. My journey's done. I've done it. You know, I'm almost triple elite. I'm already king. I'm already admiral. I started with 2 billion in the bank before doing those missions. My journey's done. You know, and if I go and do these skimmer missions and earn another 1.5 billion, I'm not cheating myself out of the game. You know, I'm not shortcutting my way through, because I've done my journey. I put the time in, I put the years in. You know, it took me 4 years to get to where I was. And I was hanging on 2 billion for ages. And yeah, all the money I earned from the skimmer missions, apart from the prismatics, which cost me 350 or something, I'm not sure quite what it was. The rest is all sat in my bank account, just gathering dust, and I've got no clue what I'm going to spend it on. I don't have a use for it, and I don't have any wants right now. You know, I don't have any plans immediately to buy another big ship. So But it doesn't make it any more right, you know. And if I'm criticizing people for doing these exploits, then I'm criticizing myself as well. Yes, I put myself in the same bag, even if, as I've explained, you know, the fact that I have another billion doesn't really change anything for me. It does for others, but still, it doesn't mean that it's any less wrong, really. So I don't have any problem owning up to the fact that I have participated, but I will not condone it, and I will not put any videos out showing people how to shortcut their way through the game. I may have done so in the past, but you won't get that from me anymore. So this is not a place, my channel is not a place to come to look for fast track guides. I prefer to be informative if I can, and try and help new guys, you know, how to do this, how to learn the engineers, how to kill a Thargoid, you know, how to use a material trader. I prefer that style rather than saying, hey guys, you know, and smothering my video thumbnails with dollar signs and saying, come and earn this and come and earn that. But that's just me. So that is pretty much all I've got to say. I have spoken at length with my friends on Discord about this. They're probably sick of hearing me talk about it, and I've probably got so much to say on the subject. But yeah, I think the conclusion, or to summarize, is really, you know, try and avoid the exploits. Don't be suckered in. Don't be tempted to do them just because the grind isn't working at a pace that you want it to. You know, Frontier can't make the game work for everybody. They can't make the grind work for everybody. It's just not going to be possible. Try and bear with it. I had to. I've done it. You know, some things take time. Some things, but make it fun. You know, it may be easier said than done. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it. But you have to be prepared for the fact that not everything you do in Elite Dangerous is going to be fun. Like even a couple of days ago, or this last week, I've been grinding and grinding and grinding for materials because I need to do a lot of hull reinforcements on my big ships. You see, now I've got these big ships. I've got a Thargoid Anaconda which needs fettling. I have a cutter which needs all of its hull reinforcements engineered. Well, I say need, doesn't really need, but I want them to be. And I need to grind so many materials to do this. And yeah, it's not fun. It's grindy, it's not fun. But the end result's going to be. And I'm prepared to work for it. I've spent 2 days, multiple hours on each day, probably 4 or 5 hours each day. So let's say 10 hours grinding core dynamic composites. And at the time you think, oh God, you know, if I drop into another high grade with proto heat radiators, I'm just gonna lose the will to live. But after those 10 hours or whatever it was that I put in, my bin was full. I had 100 core dynamic composites, but at the same time, the rest of the stuff that came in through the high grades and a few encoders that I popped into, I picked those up as well, because thanks to the new material storage system, I was also able to very well stock up on all the proto lights, the proto radiolics and the proto heats, so my time wasn't really wasted. But yeah, you can look at it and say, well, it's 10-11 hours of your life you won't get back. But that's a silly phrase, because every hour of your life is one you won't get back. It's just a question of, you know, either enjoying what you're doing in the game or understand that what you're doing may not be enjoyable, but it's going to lead to an enjoyable goal. So take your time, enjoy the journey, and don't rush it through. That's my message. Rusty Dog out.